Okay, well, let's begin. Welcome to this program, How to Be Your Best Despite All That Stress. And my name is David Lee from Human Nature at Work. So to make the most out of this program, encourage you to take notes, not with a quill pen though, and if you have questions to ask away in the little chat box. I'm also going to try to make this a little more interactive than some of the other ones I've done. So we're going to do a group exercise as if we were in the same room working together. So, and also I do have the handouts for you, and you'll be getting an automatic email in 2 hours after the program's done with the slides, so you can do the exercises more fully and have the info. So, whoops, let me just do this. So what I tried to do is there are a gazillion modules that I could do on how to be your best despite all that stress, how to boost resilience. And what I thought I would do is pull from the buffet table, if you will, one of the most useful and actionable practices and concepts, which is how to use the connection between energy, emotion, and resilience. And more specifically, looking at the fact that our energy level fuels resilience and endurance, and looking at how do you boost energy. And you might remember that quote, I think it was Vince Lombardi, "Fatigue makes cowards of us all." And you think about your own experience when you're fatigued, when you're worn out, when you haven't had enough sleep. Maybe you've gone through a really tough time in your life and your energy's low. It's a lot harder to face challenges and changes with optimism and confidence. And it's especially important in workplaces that are going through a lot of change that people know how to boost their energy level. So the practices that we'll be talking about will help you prevent change fatigue. So what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? So maybe you're in an organization where you're in the midst of this ongoing change process, maybe a new technology implementation, a reorg, whatever it is, or maybe you've gone through multiple changes over the last few years, and now you're asking employees to deal with yet another change. And this will help prevent employees from having change fatigue. Also, what we'll talk about will make a big difference in fighting compassion fatigue. So professions that are involved in helping and caretaking, it's easy to get weary and well-doing, doing day after day of what's sometimes called emotional labor, work that involves heavy lifting in the emotional realm. It also, on maybe a less intense note, helps prevent patience and civility fatigue. So if you have people involved in customer support or tech support, it's really tiring work. If you've ever been involved in that, you know how true that is. And so the techniques and practices we'll be talking about will help people in customer support and tech support be just as cheery and compassionate and patient at the end of the day as they are in the beginning of the day, or at least close to it. And then what we'll talk about also helps prevent focus fatigue. So if your team is involved in really intense thought work, knowledge workers, that the brain can only handle so much focus, so much analytical intensity and grinding out numbers and thinking in a very left brain way before the person starts operating on two cylinders. And I'm sure you've experienced that too. So to get us started on thinking about how do you boost energy and the role your energy plays in your ability to perform at your best, let's do a paradigm shift, something that you probably haven't thought about, and to think of yourself and the people that if you're a manager, you manage as knowledge worker athletes who need to treat themselves like elite athletes. So think of yourself as a knowledge worker athlete. And the lady in the middle is actually Kristen Armstrong from Boise, Idaho, who just won yet more gold medals, I think at the age of 40 in cycling. And so one of the things that I've said over the years in terms of what it takes to deal with stress in today's workplace is today's workplace compared to, let's say, 30, 40, 50 years ago, it's like being in the Olympics compared to, playing a game of pickup softball or volleyball on the weekend with your friends. The amount of pressure, the demands, the complexity, just quantum levels higher than decades ago. And so somebody competing in the Olympics like Kristen, they can't say, oh, can't they make the Olympics easier because the pressure's too much for me? Obviously, that's not an option. The option is, what do I do to develop the resilience, the mental toughness, so I can handle the pressure and demands? And so that's how I think of being a knowledge worker in today's work world, is treating yourself like an elite athlete who is required to perform in high pressure, high demand situations. And so with that in mind, here's the question I want to ask you. And I want to ask you to, again, as I mentioned when we started, and those who just came on, you're going to get the handouts in a follow-up email. So please take notes on ideas that pop up for you. Don't worry about scurrying around and copying the slides. So here's what I want to ask you to post your responses in the question box. So if you're an Olympic athlete, what would you do to keep your spirits up and your attitude positive and stay focused on your goal despite grueling training and setbacks? So what would you do in the attitudinal realm to keep your attitude high? So if you can go ahead and jot down your responses, and I'll be quiet for about 30 seconds in the question box. Okay, here we go. Think about things I like or love. Awesome. Reward myself with quiet, restful activities in between trainings. Way to go, Nancy. We'll talk more about that. Meditation. It looks like Evelyn. Way to go. Block out negativity. I think it's Jan. Jerry, winning, result of all preparation I made and sacrifices. Okay, we'll do one more. All right, Jackie, think of all the possibilities, not the impossibilities. All right, Jackie. So those are a few of the things that you'd be doing. Fantastic. And so if this were a longer program, we would do a whole bunch more. Thank you to all of you who put your suggestions or ideas in the question box. What I want to ask you to do moving forward is to think about what are some of the other things that you would do, and I'll share a few more in a moment, and how can you apply them in the performance ground that you're in right now. The second is what would you do to make sure you're physically at your best despite your grueling training? And actually, I'll just let you think about that, and then we'll move on. So let's answer those. So the big picture is we're not doing this exercise just for the fun of it. It's how can you apply this to you as knowledge worker athlete. And so here are some things that I put down. Again, in your handouts, you can go through these to things to do to keep your spirits up. Remind yourself of why you're doing what you're doing and why it matters. And this is something that's also really important with your team. So if you're doing, let's say, a big technology rollout, which will help your patients or your clients or your customers, reminding the people who are having the trouble with the technology that this will help us give better care. Or if you're in customer support, that this new software program that's a pain in the neck to learn, in the end, it'll not only help our customers get faster, better service, but it'll help our company become more successful. Ask people you respect for their perspective on how to deal with the challenges you're facing. So reaching out to formal and informal mentors. Noticing and challenging negative self-talk, and then replacing it with empowering self-talk. And I'll tell you, in the over 30 years I've been working in the stress management resilience field, those are the two practices that have made the biggest difference for me, both in reducing my stress level, but also just in terms of developing and creating a positive mood, being more confident, etc. Enlisting the help of your trusted advisors to help you stay focused and upbeat and not get caught up in the drama of the hassles of whatever the difficult situation is. And then get serious about having fun. And I'll talk a little more about that later, but basically get serious about having fun means recognizing that you're not being self-indulgent when you take time off, when you take in the movie, when you're thinking, oh, I should be doing, going over the spreadsheets for such and such, or answering emails, to recognize that you're actually working smarter versus harder if you have fun. And I'll talk about that again in a moment. And then celebrating your successes. This is something that's really important for keeping team spirit and team attitude high, especially if it's a multi-month ongoing change process. And so what about for question 2? What would you do to make yourself physically at your best and not get worn down because of your grueling training? Now, I'm going to go through these really quickly, and as I do, here's what I want to challenge you on. I bet you know every single one of these that are mission critical if you want to have high energy. And so my challenge to you is for you to not ask yourself, oh, do I know this? But to ask yourself, am I doing this for each of these items? Because it's not what we know that makes a difference. It's what we do with what we know that makes a difference in our life. Jim Rohn, business philosopher, said that years ago. It's so true. So as simple as this, are you getting adequate sleep? And this, I tell you what, being really into fitness myself, whether it's how to be a fat burning machine versus a fat storage machine, whether it's hormone optimization, whether it's building muscle, whether it's staying young as you age, all the experts I study say over and over, the number one thing, get enough sleep. Doesn't matter. You can work out all the time. You can eat well. If you don't get enough sleep, you're going to be a fat storage machine because of cortisol. And so, as you know, your brain functions a whole lot better. You're a whole lot more pleasant to deal with, a lot more patient if you're getting adequate sleep. So asking yourself, are you getting adequate sleep? Okay, so a latecomer, no worries. You are getting the handouts. I'm emailing them 2 hours. They're going to be an automatic email 2 hours after the seminar. So you're good to go. So adequate sleep. Are you getting enough? And I think it's 2/3 Americans are sleep deprived. The way you eat, is it for face amusement or is it for performance? And examining if the food you eat is creating lethargy versus energy. And here's something that I found really interesting is how different bodies are affected by carbohydrate loads. And I read this someplace and it really opened my eyes, where they were saying you know if you should cut down on your carb intake if you have a high carb breakfast like cereal or something, and then you feel like taking a nap within 60 to 90 minutes. That's a pretty good clue that you've got some insulin insensitivity going on and you need to cut down on your carbs. And so just pay attention to how you feel after different meals you eat, and let that be a guide to, am I eating in ways that fuel focus and energy? Are you getting enough water? And again, I know you know this, but are you doing it? Lots of research showing that it doesn't just affect our mood, but also our cognitive functioning. Are you getting enough exercise? And do you have a fitness regime, a regimen? And one of the, just sort of an FYI, if you've never been a workout in the morning person, you might want to give it a shot. For decades, I just thought people who worked out when I drive by my gym and like people there at 6 in the morning, I think they were insane. But I tell you what, when I start about 8 years ago, when I started working out in the morning, total game changer in terms of my energy throughout the day and also my ability to focus. If you have any ADD situation going on, exercise in the morning boosts your dopamine level. Has to be vigorous exercise, which helps your focus. And then are you engaging in enough recovery time? And I can't remember who it was, but somebody said in terms of the physical fitness question, do, in their own words, recovery. And that recovery, I think, is sort of like the best kept secret, or the secret sauce, if you will, of knowledge workers in demanding jobs having energy and having sustainable energy. And one of the things that if you're at all into fitness, is how critical recovery is in physical fitness. And in fact, recovery is really the secret sauce for elite performance with staying powers. This gentleman here is Steve Maxwell, who's, I think he's 63 now, big in the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu field and the kettlebell field. And one of the things, as you can see, is in super good shape. One of the things that he talks about with young athletes is because they don't do enough recovery and they work out hard without working out smart. Their bodies break down later on in life. And so same way, energy-wise and health-wise with us, if we don't schedule in recovery. And so another mentor of mine in the fitness world, Scott Sonnen, says recovery is king, exercise is queen. And so if elite athletes recognize you have to be really smart about recovery, elite knowledge worker athletes need to do the same thing. And so I'm not talking about recovery like you have to schedule a week vacation tomorrow because you're tired, although maybe that would be a good thing. It's looking at simple opportunities throughout the day to do mini recovery moments. So here are a couple of suggestions. One is switching tasks. Now, you might have already noticed this intuitively, but research shows that when people are engaged in a task and their energy level starts to go down, their performance goes down, the simple act of doing something different immediately boosts their energy level. So that's one thing you can do. Number two, watch a funny or inspiring video. It's a good 2-minute investment. In fact, there's some interesting research showing that cute animal videos boost your oxytocin level. And oxytocin is a wonderful hormone that when our oxytocin levels are high, we tend to be very compassionate and very altruistic. So we tend to care about people and want to do good things for other people. So just watching a cute animal video makes us a better teammate. Take a brief defocus break every 60 to 90 minutes. That our brain has 60 to 90 minute cycles throughout the day of focus and defocus. And so what that means is we can only be focused for that amount of time before we need a break. So make use of that and work with the way your brain cycle is. Take a brief walk after sitting down for X amount of minutes, whatever X is for you. A lot of the work, if I'm not at a client site, I work out of my house. And so if I've been sitting at the computer for a while, I'll get up and do some pull-ups or push-ups or something like that. So something, and I know if you're in an office, that might be a little odd. So whatever you can do that doesn't look too strange, but gives you a chance to get some physicality going. And have a brief, fun conversation. So I'll give you an example. One of the things that I did also for recovery is I was a training manager at a call center for customer service for an insurance company years and years ago. And because I'm sort of on the borderline of introvert, extrovert, I would try to balance my introvert-extrovert activities. So let's say I would be in my office working on a new program, and I feel my energy level start to drain because I needed people contact. So I'd go out on the floor and engage in extroverted activities. I would either talk with call center reps, or I would listen in on their calls and make notes on what they did well, what they could improve on, etc. When I had enough people exposure, I'd go back into my cave and work quietly alone. And again, I know not every job has that flexibility, but if you do, that's another way of having mini recovery. So those are some ideas of on the job. What are some of your at-home recovery? So let's do another other than this, although if that's what you do, then okay, cool. What do you do at home that works for you? So if you could type in the question box, let's get a little action here. So go ahead and do that. And as I'm waiting for you, I'll say some of my personal favorites. If you're not doing silence, I encourage you to do silence. I was just doing a program, I think it was last week, and a man said, "You don't have kids." And all right, there we go, Evelyn, alone time. And yep, I mean, I've got a grown-up kid, but I know that if you have children, then silence is rare. Maybe having silence when you're going to work. Play with my cats, all right. And sorry for some of these names, it doesn't show me. Oh, here we go. Oh, Doreen. All right, Doreen. Play mahjong. Oh, cool, Nancy. Go for a walk. Okay. Hit golf balls in the yard. All right, Stan, Sharon, mindfulness training. Way to go, Sharon. Man, let me just say something real quickly about mindfulness training. And I'm sort of going to blend mindfulness training with meditation. One of the things that I heard recently that got me, all right, Gail, spend time with my dogs. Qigong. All right, Qigong, Karen, way to go. Another Qigong fan. Oh, video games. Okay, interesting yin and yang going there. Qigong and Tai Chi. Okay, more dog lovers. One of the things that has gotten me more serious, walking in the woods. All right, Nancy. Let me just say something about Nancy and walking in the woods. Think about this. The human brain evolved to deal with a natural environment. And so it did not evolve to deal with fluorescent light, being inside all the time, etc. So any time you can spend in nature is a time that you're restoring your nervous system and boosting your energy. So big shout out to Nancy with that one. And I almost lost track of what I was going to say. One of the things I heard from Tim Ferriss, the 4-Hour Workweek guy, who has an awesome podcast, where he was saying how 80% of the people he knows in Silicon Valley, i.e. super smart and unbelievably demanding jobs, meditate. And so he decided, you know what, if that's the deal, I got to deal with my impatience and antsiness and learn how to meditate. And one of the things that I've learned since then is that one of the advantages of mindfulness training and meditation is it actually strengthens your prefrontal lobes, which not only allows us to maintain our cool and calm better, but also helps. The stronger your frontal lobes are, the stronger your ability to focus. And the better you can focus, obviously the better work you can do and more sustained work. Okay, so with that in mind, takeaway, pick the principles and practices of being a knowledge worker athlete you most relate to and implement. And then this is so important, reactivate the recovery practices that have worked for you and experiment with different recovery practices to add to your repertoire. So when you think about what are the things that boost your energy, I want you to think about, are some of these things I used to do and I haven't been doing enough of, like spending time in nature or quiet time or maybe hanging out with friends? Okay, so major paradigm shift. Think of yourself as a knowledge worker athlete and recognize you need to treat yourself like the elite athlete you are. Now we're going to move into something that I think is ultra cool. And it's based on the gaming psychology, but also the mind-body connection. And I think probably most of you on the line, I have not shared this with you. But in a previous career, I worked in the mind-body medicine field. I did that for about 12 or 13 years, and I did hypnosis and a lot of work with trauma survivors, as well as using hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, guided visualization, etc., related to health and wellness issues. And I tell you what, besides making me a real believer in the power of the mind to affect the body, so in other words, if we're saying things like, this won't go well, or I just can't stand dealing with such and such, or this person drives me crazy, or all that crazy self-talk that unfortunately is natural for most of us to engage in, the things that we say, how profoundly they affect our emotions and our performance. It also, being in the mind-body medicine field, made me such a believer in the power that the body has on the mind. So the power that our physiology, our emotional state, our energy level plays, and the influence it has on our perspective. So just think of just as simple as if you're really tired or don't feel well, situations that are challenging seem like a much bigger deal than you have plenty of rest and you feel well. Or if you're tired, or if you're hungry, or you're just in a grumpy mood, whatever, and how that affects your performance. Okay, so enough of that. I just wanted to lay the foundation. So a power-up, if you're not a gamer, is any type of item in a video game that makes you more, strangely enough, powerful, more effective. So in Angry Birds, magic seeds are power-ups. And so I guess I have never played Angry Birds, but I guess like the birds get bigger and they can knock down bigger things. In other video games, it's like care packages, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, here's let me just ask you these questions, and then we'll dive into why I'm asking you these questions. Okay, so question number one. Here we go. And this time, just answer it in your head, please. I feel most alive and happy when ... So in your head, when do you feel most alive and happy? So example for me would be surfing. Love, 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 love that. Here are two simple little things in life that boost my mood and are legal. That's actually, it doesn't even have to be legal for our purpose. This is, I did a live in-person version this last week, and so just wanted to keep people out of jail, depending on what they shared in the group. And then it would make me a happier camper and maybe even healthier if I started doing what again? Okay? So just notice your answers to these. And again, when you get you'll get the handouts, and I encourage you to reflect on these questions, because there's gold in them Nar Hills. There's gold in those questions, because what those questions are is they're some of your power-ups. Your answers are some of your power-ups. Now, what do I mean by power-ups? I really want you to check out Jane McGonigal's work. She's got a whole bunch of TED Talks, and she wrote an awesome book called Super Better, a revolutionary approach to getting stronger, happier, braver, and more resilient. And Jane has, I'll just do the really simple story of Jane and how she came to Super Better. So she's got a PhD in, I think it's gaming psychology. She got a concussion-induced depression where she was bedbound, couldn't go outdoors, couldn't talk on the phone, couldn't watch TV, play video games, or anything. And so she got into a really bad depression, and what she ended up doing is using some of the principles that make games so addictive and so compelling to blast herself out of her depression. And she ended up creating a program called Super Better, and her website is superbetter, I think it's .org, that people all around the world use her principles to achieve fitness goals, break bad habits, feel better about lives, etc. So here's the deal. that real-world power-ups are the key to keeping our mood positive and being stress-resistant, aka resilient. So I just want to share with you a little bit of the research behind this because I want you to appreciate the power that is at your fingertips if you use activate power-ups. So this is based on the research of Dr. Stephen Porges and his research on the vagus nerve. And so you see, there it goes. The vagus nerve is right there. And the vagus nerve has been described as the like ground zero of the mind-body connection. And vagal tone, just think of vagal tone. I'm not going to get into the specifics, the anatomy and physiology of that. You can Google vagal tone and you can read about it if you're into that. But basically, for our purposes, the simplest, most useful way of thinking of vagal tone is it's like how strong your vagus nerve is. So how buff your vagus nerve is. And why we care about that, and I just realized I had a handout that I read to groups that I cleverly forgot to have here. So I'm going to do a pathetic version of what I read, and then I can send you the actual handout so you can see the real one. But basically, what the stronger your vagal tone is, the more resilient you are physically and emotionally. And one of the outcomes of Dr. Stephen Porges's work on the vagus is this. He said, your ability to handle life difficulties is not dependent on how much difficulty you experience or the difficulty of the situation. The determining factor of how resilient you are, and maybe I'll say it in a more precise way, the determining factor influencing how stressed out you are about a difficult time, whether it's dealing with a difficult person later on today or whether it's a difficult 3 or 4 months that you're going through because of some big technology implementation or some new system that you're trying to get used to. So whether it's short-term or long-term, your stress level is not determined by how difficult the situation is. It's determined by how strong your vagal tone is. And so one of the analogies that I use, it's kind of like, let's say you get in a car accident and you have the seatbelt on, you're smart, but you get kind of tossed about. Well, how strong your core muscles are, including your neck, will play a big role in how much damage that car accident has on your body. If you have a weak core, obviously there'll be a lot of damage. If you have a strong core, there'll be much less damage. So that's a metaphor for thinking about the role that vagal tone plays. And so there's, if you Google vagal tone, you can see a whole bunch of articles on the role the vagus nerve plays in, as you see here, possessing grace under pressure. And there are all kinds of practices to boost vagal tone. Here's just an example of a research article connecting power-ups with being more productive and more resilient. So long story short, or maybe it's already become long at this point, that power-ups and strengthen your vagal tone, which makes you less reactive to other people, and also, less reactive to difficult situations and less affected by difficult people in difficult circumstances. So I'm going to play this short video. I was going to test it out before we did this, but my last meeting ran late, so I didn't get a chance to test it out. So I'm hoping it'll actually play for you. It's only a minute, and I'll just cut it if it doesn't play. But it's a fun example of what, like a cartoon version of what happens when people don't have strong vagal tone. And this is actually an actor from Breaking Bad doing a commercial for Nissan on YouTube. So I'm going to try and just see if it works. So you probably know, or maybe even work with people like that. I want to do a quick check. Um, let's see. Oh, can't hear audio. Oh, bummer. Oh, shoot. So sorry. I didn't see the questions until now. Okay, sorry. What I'll do is I will send you, it's way funnier with, with audio, as you can probably gather. So sorry. Not sure why that happened. What I'll do, I'll send you the link so you can enjoy it. Okay, so let's move on to, as you can probably tell by the visuals, the guy was not the most pleasant guy to deal with. So let's talk about how to strengthen your vagal tone and build resilience. So here's the key, and this is so important, and it's really good news. The key to strengthening vagal tone is experiencing microbursts of positive emotions. So just those little uplifts, like having a fun, brief conversation with a friend or watching a funny video, that sort of thing. It's not about orchestrating or waiting for some big, fancy, uplifting occasion to happen. So the factors that the research shows on vagal tone is it's the cumulative effect of little uplifts in emotion. It's not the big stuff. And also, this is super good news, especially if you're going through a hard time. The key to strengthening vagal tone is not trying to reduce the negative emotions. And so people with strong vagal tone don't have any fewer negative emotions. They just have a whole lot more positive emotions. And actually, in Jay McGonigal's book, she talks about you can get a good sense of how strong your vagal tone is simply by keeping track of your emotions throughout the day and notice your ratio of positive to negative emotions. That is a really accurate indicator of how strong your vagal tone is. So what the takeaway is, oh, I forgot about this. What the takeaway is being conscious about doing things throughout the day, those little magic moments that boost your spirit. And I put presence here because we can't get the benefit of microbursts of positivity if we're not present in our life. And just this really quick story. This is my all-time favorite cat, Bill, who passed away in 2007. Just amazing, big personality. And one of the things, those of you who have cats can relate to this, that he would do is when I finally sat down at night to read, being a cat, he, of course, decided that's when he wanted attention and would sit on my book or the journal I was reading. And my first inclination would be to push him aside, like I want to read. But then I would say to myself, remember, Bill's not going to be here forever. You need to enjoy him while he's here. Be present to the awesomeness that is Bill. And so that I would force myself to do that. And when Bill passed away and I no longer had him around in those fun little moments with him, I was certainly thankful that I reminded myself in the moment to be present. So it's whether it's with your kids, your grandkids, your friends, your pets, is to remember to be present to them. But also in general, it could be as simple as being present to when you're checking out in the grocery store and not just seeing the clerk as just this object who's processing your order, but another human being that might be fun to have a little interaction with. I've got a friend who's just amazing role model in terms of being present to people that she interacts with, strangers. and engaging them in fun interactions. And I see how much they love it and how much more fun the interaction is, how much more energizing it is than, my tendency is to be polite and smile, but not as outwardly friendly. So she's a good role model for me. So we're not going to play this video. This is, if you want to Google or go to YouTube, an otter eating cereal. It's pretty adorable. So again, cute animal videos boost oxytocin. So take away, reflect on the power-ups that work best for you and do more of them. So you get started with that simple little exercise that I hope you think of more later. So you get started with thinking in terms of what boosts my spirit? What are things that make me come alive? And especially remember the little ones throughout the day. So look for opportunities to find and create microbursts of positive emotions, i.e. power-ups. And by doing that, you're strengthening your vagal tone, and that boosts your resilience. Remember, that's the number one factor. And so that helps you deal with those grinding it out day after day, week after week of tough times. And also the little power-ups just throughout the day keep you fresh and enthusiastic and patient. So for team power-ups, this is, we did this in the live version. We don't have time now, but if we were doing this on site, we would do an exercise around what are energizer behaviors that keep spirits up during difficult times. And I took the slide out, but there's some fascinating research on energizer and de-energizer behaviors by Dr. Rob Cross. So we're going to end off with the ultimate power-up, relationship building and morale boosting practice. And that is gratitude. Here's a quote. This is actually from a conference presentation I did recently on employee engagement, and I borrowed it for this purpose. What you appreciate appreciates. What you don't appreciate depreciates, including hard work, initiative, and excellence. Isn't that true? And so in that program, I was using it to encourage participants to make expressing appreciation, expressing gratitude a regular part of leadership activities and interactions with employees. For our purposes, though, gratitude not only has very strong practical reasons in terms of increasing the odds that people will try hard, do a great job, etc., but also what we know about the practice of gratitude is that I'll explain this in a second. Some of you can remember when cell phones looked like that. What we think about this, the practice of gratitude is like the practice of giving somebody a compliment. When we express gratitude or give somebody a compliment, not only do they feel better, but we feel better. It not only releases feel-good biochemicals in other people, but when we do acts of goodwill, when we express gratitude, when we give compliments, it boosts our oxytocin and dopamine levels. And so we feel better. And so there's lots of research showing the health and well-being benefits of being mindful of all we have to be grateful for. And so there's studies showing that people who keep gratitude journals feel better, sleep better, more likely to see the good in others, etc. And so if you practice being more mindful of looking for opportunities to express appreciation, but let's broaden this to opportunities to give somebody a compliment, or I call this the bigger picture, spreading goodwill, looking for opportunities to be helpful to people. Those are big time power-ups as well as morale building and team building activities. So here's a question for you. Let me make this a challenge. Whether it's a call and leaving voicemail or emailing somebody or shooting or texting them or even writing a note, I want to ask you right now to commit to who is it that you will let them know something about them that you appreciate. And if you can write that down and make a mental promise to yourself, because I want this to make a difference in your life, not just to be like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I'll give you an example. a group that I just worked with, the one I mentioned last week, one of the leaders suggested this activity that we do, and we did it, which was to have participants in the workshop that I did write a thank you note to somebody from the technology team that has been so helpful to them as they've been rolling out the technology. That's why I've got technology implementation on my mind. And so the technology, the IT department it's just been a really grueling time for them. And so as a way to express gratitude, spread goodwill, but also as a way to feel good because they're doing something nice, we had them write a note to whoever they wanted to thank them. And so you can use that in your organization. It's encourage employees to shoot out, whether these were handwritten notes or little emails or texts. So please commit to that. So takeaways: look for opportunities to apply knowledge worker as athlete lessons. Okay, so we're in the home front here. We talked about experiment with different recovery practices to see what ones work best for you. Remember, engaging in recovery is not self-indulgent. It is smart and allows you to perform at your best and not burn out. Reflect on the power-ups that work best for you and do more of them. Look for opportunities to find and create microbursts of positive emotion, i.e. power-ups. So again, this makes all the difference in the world in your resilience level, and it's so easy to do. Ask yourself, what energizer behavior can I engage in right now? And so basically, we didn't really go into that, but energizer behavior, anything that boosts the spirits of others. So it includes like being a good listener, showing that you care. Number 7, look for opportunities to express gratitude. By doing so, uplift others. This one also is a total game changer, including how to be more welcome wherever you go. Because you think about, most people don't give compliments, don't express appreciation, don't look at ways of being thoughtful to others. Your doing that really sets you apart, besides making you feel better. Okay, and so closing, we're going to close up here, and then if there are any questions, I will answer questions. So closing thoughts: remember, building resilience is like physical fitness. It takes ongoing practice. When I do resilience seminars, I tell people, I've been doing this, like I mentioned to you, 30 years, and it's still an ongoing practice, because it's still natural for us to engage in negative self-talk, stress-inducing self-talk, etc. And just like physical fitness, you don't go to the gym once and say, took care of that, I'm fit. So knowing this ongoing practice. Number 2 is when you do the things we discussed, you feel better and perform better. And also you're more pleasant to be with. So it's a total win-win-win. And then the last one is sort of when all else fails. And if you remember Lord of the Rings and Aragorn's motivational speech at the gates of Mordor, the takeoff: if none of this you apply, a day may come when I get enough sleep and don't need coffee, but it is not this day. So you can always resort to that little bit of motivational thought. So we are officially done. Remember, you can put your questions in now. This is just one of many items. And here's what I'm thinking about. If there's interest, I'm going to put together a whole series on shorter modules. They'll be shorter than an hour. They'll be 15 minutes to 30 minutes. If you're interested in that, please let me know, because I want to, and I might just send out a survey or something too, because if there's interest, I'll put the effort into it. And this would be like a subscription-based service that your organization would license. So, and also any questions about anything that we covered, there's all my contact info. So let me see, any questions before we officially sign off? Okay, what do we have here? Thanks, Stan. The slides are going out, and also I'll follow up with the vagal tone thing. Okay, would you recommend any TED Talks about gratitude? Jen, I'm blanking on the names of some of the gratitude people, but I would just put in YouTube gratitude TED Talk, and it pretty much guarantee if it's a TED Talk, it's good. David, can you do webinars on building resiliency in daily practice? Absolutely. That's something I'm very personally committed to, and easily create a webinar on that. That would definitely be part of the series. All right, yeah, there we go. Sean Aker, thanks, Tim. Fantastic. He's awesome. One of my all-time favorites. Thank you. Oh, hey, thanks, Gail. Cool. Let's see. Anything else? And appreciate the shout outs. Thank you. Okay, there's that. Hey, thanks, Jen. Any other questions? All right. Thanks. I appreciate it, Doreen. So, hey, thanks. I really appreciate. And I just want to say that, you know, and actually this is sort of funny. I'll do a quick true confession here. You guys, this isn't the confession, but you guys rock. Here's the confession. One of the things, I was talking with a fellow speaker consultant friend of mine, and we were both noting how we're both very much into, in our personal lives, being appreciative of people, and also, you know, preach that, because it's such an important practice in making the world a better place. And we're both sort of like not laughing, but being amused by how, even though we both talk about expressing gratitude, encouraging people to look at people in their lives who are helpful to them, express gratitude, we also know it's so ironic that very rarely do people who go to presentations express gratitude to, or like take the time to appreciate the presenter or send them a follow-up. And so we're funny, like, I guess our message isn't getting out. But then the humbling point was, I found myself, after coming back from this national conference and having a few people reach out to say how much they loved the presentation, realizing that there were several presenters I loved that I hadn't told how much I did. So kind of a humbling recognition that, you know, there are opportunities that I'm missing too. So that's maybe a long way of saying, hey, thanks to those of you who gave the shout out. And please make sure you text or email or leave a voicemail to somebody in your life, especially some unsung hero like an admin that you appreciate. So that's it for now. Thanks for being part of this. You'll get the handouts, and also I will put a link to the vagal tone thing that I forgot, and the video. So I'm signing off. So till next time, look forward to seeing you in future. Have a great day. Take care. Bye.